Deontay Wilder might be the best puncher in heavyweight history, at least according to veteran trainer Naazim Richardson. Let me quote what brother Naazim had to say here. He said, "I said he might be the best heavyweight puncher in history, and people are like, how can you compare him to Joe Louis and Mike Tyson and George Foreman? The reason I say this, they were all better fighters than him. Tyson was technically sound. His defense was beautiful. His hand and foot speed was the fastest since Muhammad Ali. He had a different style, of course, but his hands and feet were fast. His head movement was beautiful. He was damn hard to hit. George Foreman's jab was way more educated than Deontay Wilder's. They all had better attributes than him. Wilder didn't have any of that when he started winning and defending world titles. He just hit you. I mean, he effing hit you. I believe he punches harder than Klitschko, and I saw Klitschko rock him when he's talking about Anthony Joshua here. Since I saw Klitschko rock him, I also believe he punches harder than David Price, who they say knocked Joshua out in sparring. I used to feel the most technically sound boxer in the heavyweight division was King Kong Luis Ortiz. Joshua is nice and is younger, but King Kong was the better boxer. He could change things up better than Joshua. But Deontay Wilder weathered that storm. Before King Kong, I thought Joshua had a better chance. But now he knows he can get those guys who box better than him. He knows he can get them if he takes his time. He also showed a good chin to hang on. Every time I saw Tyson hurt, he lost. Every time I saw Joshua hurt in a fight, he damn near goes down. When you see Wilder hurt, he still stands his ground. He's never shown fear or apprehension. So those are the words of Naazim Richardson. Now I want to touch on 2 points he's made here. First of all, the punching power of Deontay Wilder. In a recent video, I talked about a lot of boxing fans having rose-tinted glasses super glued onto their faces. And so many boxing fans do. Because as far as they're concerned, there are only 3 fighters who are in the running for the greatest punchers of all time. Ernie Shavers, George Foreman, and Mike Tyson. If you talk about anybody else outside of those 3 guys, a lot of these fans with these rose-tinted glasses super glued onto their face, they'll get angry, they'll get aggy, they'll start launching attacks upon you, ad hominem attacks. They'll start saying you don't know nothing about boxing. They'll start saying you're an idiot. They'll start ridiculing the fighters who you say punch harder than those guys. That's what they'll do. It is an illogical and ridiculous position that they take. As if those 3 fighters are going to be the hardest punchers of all time forever. It's ridiculous. I'm here to tell you that there have been many fighters before and since who hit harder than Mike Tyson, George Foreman, and Ernie Shavers. Being the hardest puncher doesn't necessarily mean you're the best fighter. And so therefore, you can get guys who hit harder than the fighters I've just mentioned, who were nowhere near as good as them, who were nowhere near as prolific as them when it comes to landing knockout blows. Because it's not just being able to punch hard, it's being able to actually deliver those hard punches. There are so many fighters out there who punch extremely hard, but they don't have an effective delivery system. And so therefore they don't have the knockouts on their resume, particularly at a high level, to reflect the true extent of their punching power. You see, Mike Tyson, Ernie Shavers, George Foreman, these were guys with a very effective delivery system. So yes, they could punch hard, but they were prolific punchers. They were guys who had the skill, who had the ability, who had the knack for being able to land those big punches on a consistent basis, fight after fight. It's that which is the crucial thing. It's that which determines how effective and how prolific a big puncher is going to be. But I've got no doubt in my mind that there are plenty of fighters, past and present, who hit harder than those three guys I just mentioned. Deontay Wilder might be one of them. And I know some people don't want to hear that. To hell with it, I'm going there. Deontay Wilder might be exactly what Naazim Richardson said, the best heavyweight puncher in history. And I'm not sure that Naazim Richardson is even necessarily saying that Wilder hits harder than any other heavyweight in history. I think what he's saying is that he might be the most prolific puncher in heavyweight history because of the fact that he lacks skills, but yet he still manages to get knockouts. You know, he mentioned the fact that George Foreman was a guy who could be wild, he could be sloppy, he wasn't the most skilled fighter out there, but one thing George Foreman did have is a tremendous jab. George Foreman has got one of the best jabs in heavyweight history. He had a tremendous jab when he was in his prime, and to a lesser extent when he came back in his late 30s and going on into his mid-40s. He had a tremendous jab. Deontay Wilder don't have a jab on that level. Deontay Wilder's jab is pretty good, but it's not a Joe Louis jab. It's not a George Foreman jab. It's not a Lennox Lewis or Klitschko jab. But yet he's still getting knockouts. He doesn't have the coordination and the defense and the hand and foot speed of a Mike Tyson, but yet he's still getting knockouts. So I think that's the point Naazim Richardson's saying. He's saying this guy is just a prolific puncher. He's just got an incredible knack for landing his power on a consistent basis against guys who box better than he does. And because of that, you've got to put him right up there with the greatest heavyweights in history. And I think it's a solid argument. And Naazim Richardson is a very experienced trainer. He's been around a long time. You're not going to try to tell me that Naazim Richardson is a casual. He's older than most of you guys. He's older than me. He's been around a long time. He's trained some great fighters. He's seen some great fights. He's lived through many different eras. He is definitely in a position to say what he's saying with some authority. Yeah? So I'm not going to dismiss this idea that Wilder might be the best puncher in heavyweight history. He's certainly up there as far as I'm concerned. He's up there. And I'm just strictly talking about his power and his ability to deliver the power. I'm not talking about how good he is as a fighter overall. I'm not saying he's as good as Tyson as a fighter overall or as good as Foreman. I'm not saying that. I'm just talking strictly about his power. Okay, you look at Darnell Boone. Darnell Boone is a journeyman. Darnell Boone has got tremendous punching power. He just wasn't skilled enough to be able to land the power on a consistent basis, fight after fight. But he dropped Kovalev in their first fight. He knocked out Stevenson. He dropped Andre Ward. And these are all guys who are much bigger than him physically. That's a journeyman with tremendous punching power. If he can land on you right, you're in trouble. But yet he don't have a record that would suggest, if you look at it on paper, that he's this tremendous puncher. So, just because I'm saying someone might be one of the greatest punchers of all time, it don't mean I'm saying they're one of the greatest fighters of all time. I understand that distinction. Anyway, moving on to the second point here. When Naazim Richardson is talking about King Kong Ortiz and Anthony Joshua and all this kind of stuff, he basically is telling you here that Joshua is a better boxer than Deontay Wilder. From a skill point of view, from a fundamentals point of view, he's better than Deontay Wilder. But he's also saying that he thinks Ortiz is a better boxer than Joshua, skills-wise. And if Wilder can get over Ortiz, then he can get over Joshua. That's essentially what Naazim Richardson is saying. He's saying, yeah, Joshua's got better skills than Wilder, but Wilder's fought skilled boxers before, and he's managed to get them out of there. So I think he'd do the same with Joshua, in all likelihood. Maybe Wilder will. You know, we have to get the fight on and see. May the best man win. He talks about Klitschko hitting harder than, Wilder hitting harder than Klitschko and Price. Maybe he does, but those guys were skilled. Well, Klitschko's skilled, not so much Price. Right? Let me take back the bit about David Price. But Klitschko's skilled. We don't know the circumstances fully of what happened to Anthony Joshua and sparring with David Price. It was when Joshua was an amateur anyway, so we don't really want to look at that and say, well, it's the same Joshua as today, because it's not. Joshua, I think, is harder to hit today than he was when he sparred David Price, I'm sure. But Klitschko is a much better boxer than Deontay Wilder. Much more skilled than Wilder, much more experienced. So for Klitschko to be able to land those big shots on Joshua, it doesn't necessarily mean Wilder will find it so easy. And Klitschko didn't find it that easy, And he's someone who's highly skilled. So, yeah, while there might be an argument to be made that Wilder hits harder than Klitschko, will Wilder find it so easy to land on Joshua as Klitschko did? That's a question you have to ask yourselves. And as far as King Kong Ortiz is a good fighter. He's a skilled fighter. But do we really know how good he is? Because outside of Deontay Wilder, he's fought nobody for years. The last proper fight he was in was when he beat Brian Jennings. And that was many, many years ago. And we don't even know if he was clean then. So how good is he really? People are acting as though he's the second best heavyweight out there or something. Who's he fought to prove that he's the second best heavyweight out there? Did Ortiz beat Klitschko? Did Ortiz beat Joseph Parker? Did he even beat someone like a Dominic Brazil? No, he beat none of those guys. Anthony Joshua is far more proven than Luis Ortiz. Facts. Anyone trying to argue against that, well, you're out of touch with reality. You're intellectually challenged. You're not all there in the head if you're trying to tell me that Luis Ortiz is more proven as a professional than Anthony Joshua. He's not. Joshua's way more proven. He's got a way better record than Luis Ortiz. So that has to be said with regards to what Naazim Richardson is saying with Joshua Wilder here. Yeah, he weathered a storm against Ortiz, did Wilder, but Joshua is far more proven than Ortiz. We don't know really how good Ortiz is. I'm not saying Ortiz is not good, but I'm just saying we don't know because he ain't been fighting anybody. Let me know how you guys feel about this in the comment section below. Also, the chin. He says every time he saw Tyson hurt, Tyson lost. Well, Tyson got buzzed against Bone Crusher Smith and he won that fight. But outside of that, I would agree. Whenever you saw Tyson in trouble, in proper trouble, he went on to lose. Against Buster Douglas, he got, not Buster Douglas, sorry, against Razor Ruddock in the two fights. I wouldn't say he was in trouble against Razor Ruddock. He was under pressure in both Ruddock fights at various points, but I don't think he was ever really seriously hurt or in trouble. Against Buster Douglas, he was obviously hurt and he lost that fight. Against Holyfield, he was hurt and he lost both fights. Well, he wasn't hurt in the second fight, but he was certainly hurt in the first fight in that 10th round. So, and he was hurt against Lennox Lewis and whatnot. So yeah, Tyson didn't show the ability to get seriously hurt and then come back. He didn't show that in his career. That is a decent point by Naazim Richardson. But he says Deontay Wilder did show the ability to come back from being hurt, which he did. He did look composed against Luis Ortiz when he was hurt. But it also has to be said that he got a lot of help in that fight. When he came out for the next round, inexplicably, they had him taken to the corner to see the doctor. For what reason exactly? We know what reason. It was some funny business. They were trying to give him extra time to recover. That's what it was. Let's be real about that. All right. Anyway, let me know how you feel about Naazim Richardson here. What he said about Deontay Wilder and his punching power and how he thinks he would do against Joshua. And comparing Deontay Wilder to these great heavyweights of the past. Let me know how you feel, people. This Hammer, I'm out.